I very much appreciate the opportunity to come in and speak with you about FirstBuild and the way that we go about innovating products for GE appliances. Basically, we are a group of makers that want to create what's next for the home, and we want to do that for GE. So what does that look like? A lot of people want an org chart. So I'll share with you, kind of like that's my org chart. So if you think about our world, it's kind of at our center is GE appliances, and you can see FirstBuild. Actually, you can't see FirstBuild on this chart. There we are. FirstBuild is a small group of around 20 of us that is actually a wholly owned subsidiary of GE appliances. We're separate. But our purpose is to try to invent and change what? We actually want to change GE appliances from outside in. The intent is to try to mix up the DNA. Again, it kind of goes back to what I said, that we're makers. We're somewhat outside. What is a maker? I think maybe the best is to actually let makers tell you in their own words. So if Andrew, you could roll the...
My love of making started from a really young age. My dad and I would go and do these science projects in the basement of my house.
We open our doors every day at 9 o'clock. Anyone can come in and join us, and we celebrate when they do. And we interact with them, and we understand their perspective.
Anyone with a good idea can come in and join us and bring their idea to life. Not just because we have the capabilities in terms of equipment, but because the team.
I saw the shop in the back, and it was like a fantasy factory, to be honest.
It was like a little kid in a candy store. I walked in and I was like, they have everything.
We have some pretty amazing ideas that just come in off the street.
My second project is building an arcade machine for individuals and children with disabilities.
I was like a self-taught maker just from watching YouTube videos. And just seeing guys on YouTube and how they do things, why they do it, that kind of inspired me to go and learn the same things. I've been making all the furniture at our house from scratch. So I've done 4 chairs, 2 nightstands, 1,000 cutting boards, and I have a vanity coming up soon, some bookshelves. I made my wedding band here. I think FirstBuild inspires you to really push the boundary of what you can do as a maker, as an engineer, as a designer.
Every minute somebody's discovering something new, myself included. You're free to be able to come in, be yourself, and build, but then you're also free to make a difference.
So these are some of the faces of the makers I get to work with every day. You'll see, you were introduced to Austin. He's there on the right side of the screen. He came in as a maker that wanted to just learn how to use all the equipment we had in our shop. Came in, became self-taught, and he was going to school, so we actually hired him as a student employee. All of the products that we manufacture at FirstBuild are actually manufactured by college students. So he just fit right in, and I'm happy to say that he's our newest engineer after graduation. So maybe to explain a little bit more about how we innovate for GE appliances, I'll talk about a product that we manufacture. Now, there's a maker that's going to be the story arc of that. It's Chris Neighbor, the guy in the center there. You'll see him. He's the other guy wearing this shirt like I am. But he led a small team that included engineers from GE appliances because, again, we're connected along with FirstBuild to invent this, an oven for your home that can make a great slice of pizza. Because that's actually kind of what it started out as. It was an idea off of our website. Can you make great pizza at home? I don't know if any of you guys make great pizza at home, but quite frankly, we don't. We generally go out. Is it the ovens? Is it the approach? We weren't really sure. So the first thing we tried to figure out was, well, how do you make great pizza? So that's where we started to become our passion. So we watched hours of YouTube. We learned broken Italian. We understood that there are zeros after flour. Hydration ratios, yeast. We ended up coming up with a great dough. And it would actually cook very well in a professional oven, but when you cooked it in our ovens in our homes, it just missed the mark. We didn't know what that answer was. So we're makers. So the next thing we did is we made a digital pizza. I mean, that's what you do when you're a technologist that tries stuff, right? So you'll see on the side there, the pepperonis are actually temperature sensors, and it allowed us to, to measure heat fluxes of ovens. So again, we're open, so we hit the road. We took our digital pizza and we went everywhere from New York to Cali and places in between, and people were wonderful to allow us to measure their ovens. And you know what we learned? It's not about temperature. It's more than that. It's about heat balance. It's about being able to have a stone that actually you could soak at a very high temperature like 800, but have the dome be independent so you could actually get radiation to be able to caramelize foods and get that right balance to be able to make a great pie. So we thought we had an idea, so as makers, we built it. We actually went out into our shop and tried to understand the physical nature of the product, built it, and being open, we had a lot of pizza parties. So we invited folks in. We had chefs. We had local folks. We actually hosted the IECP, which is the Culinary Professionals Group, and came in and we learned so much from sharing with them. We learned about our ratios. We learned about things, but we also learned one other thing. When you dump pizza ingredients in an oven that's over 1,000 degrees, you get a lot of smoke. And when you get a lot of smoke in a public area, you get to meet your local fire department. It's not a great conversation to have with your boss. Like, hey, we may make the news, but maybe not for the right answer. So we learned that we needed to have something different. So we actually designed an air knife for the opening to make sure that smoke didn't escape, and then developed a catalyst system to be able to use up the smoke. So you as a consumer, we knew you weren't going to put in a separate ventilation system, so it's independent. So what did it become? It became a 30-inch, all-electric, open hearth oven that can make so much more than pizza. It can do roasted chicken. It can do roasted fish, vegetables. And it can do a great Neapolitan pizza in 2 minutes and get the leopard printing that you want on the bottom of the dough. And what we're really excited about is that you can go to any Monogram dealer, our flagship brand, and look at this leadership product, and our name isn't anywhere on it. Because we did what we set out to do. We changed the surface. We had innovated from outside in. We're able to create this product with a partnership with our company, our parent, but really from an independent standpoint. It's not the only thing that we innovate. I mean, there's several stories you may have heard, the Opal Ice Maker and things like that. Our latest innovation is there on the right. It's a forged clear ice system where you can pour tap water into the device and press a button, and in about 4 hours, you'll have big blocks of clear ice. And it'll store them for you, and when your friends come over for a cocktail party, you can put it in the world's only heated press and make a sphere, and hopefully make your bar the envy of all your friends. Remember that catalyst system that I told you about on the pizza oven that actually took care of our smoke problem? Well, later this year or early next, we'll be offering the Ardent Indoor Smoker. I said indoor smoker. It'll be a device where you can do 50 wings, or you can do a brisket, or you could maybe do some chickpeas for some great hummus, and you'll be able to do it in the comfort of your home. And that's the intent of what we want to do. We want to make things for people. We make real things and create them for them. Our latest innovation, when we're not making things, we're making friends, or at least we're trying to. Our latest product is a typical 25-foot fire shooting appliance robot that we made for a maker fair that we hosted this last weekend. We hosted that because we think making matters. We think making matters for community. We think making matters for educators. We think making matters to be able to build an innovative culture where everybody is welcome to be able to come in and be part. So how do we innovate for GE Appliances? We are makers that create real things. When we create those things, we share them. We share them throughout our development process to have that give and take. And then we learn from those people that come in. And we don't just learn about our products. We learn from other great makers. We want to be a destination for makers, where we're always somewhere between the mentor and the apprentice, learning from folks. And we continue that making cycle until we develop something people are passionate to purchase. So ultimately, we really think that making matters. I very much appreciate the time to be able to come and talk to you today. Thank you, Micah, for the invitation.
Excellent. Great. Come have a seat. We just put that. Excellent. So you and I chatted last night a lot, and I was fascinated, honestly, by the model. I mean, I think when you hear incubator, innovation zone, et cetera, all these buzzwords for our big companies. A lot of different things come to mind, right? Because it's not novel now to have big companies looking for ways to innovate outside companies. What I think FirstBuild does is super fascinating because it's almost like a homegrown effort. You're going to the streets, literally almost, and saying, what are your problems? People, come help us solve them. Bring your problems, bring your solutions. We want to hear about them. So I'd love to have you talk just about a couple of the things, examples, outside of the stuff you brought up. So where a community person brought an idea that was a challenge for their community or and then you guys were able to say, oh wow, how could we fix this, and work together, and it really took off. I'd love to give a couple examples of that.
Oh, thank you. We big companies, full disclosure, before I led FirstBuild, I was the technology leader for GE Appliances cooking divisions globally. Very happy about that heritage. Sometimes you just need an outlet to be heard. One of our earliest products was an Opal Ice Maker. That was an idea that was actually brought to us by a refrigeration engineer that couldn't get the product development team to listen to his idea, so we came to FirstBuild. And that became quite successful for us. Or it could be something just that people are passionate about. Like I mentioned the Forge. We live in Louisville, Kentucky, which is the heart of bourbon country. We're very fortunate for that. We wanted to be involved in that. GE Appliances wouldn't give us a liquor license, so we had to figure out something. So people want, heaven forbid, sometimes you don't want to drink your bourbon neat. You want to actually have something that chills it down, but you don't want it to water down. So we worked with not only local bourbon enthusiasts, but other local bourbon manufacturers like Brown-Forman, and understood that people wanted clear ice to be able to be developed, and we take that kind of stuff on the road. The smoker is just, there's a tremendous amount of desire for people to have smoked foods, but how many people don't have backyards? Or how many people don't have the time that it takes to actually gather all the things that they need to be able to do that. So we get very inspired by people bringing those desires to us. But the biggest thing for us, it really starts from outside in. Literally, we sit outside the walls of GE Appliances. Not only separate technically, we sit actually on another campus. We sit on the University of Louisville campus where we interact with students and create with so many new ideas, and just being open to those. We're really powered by the community.
What would you say to startups who are here in the room or whatnot, or folks who are looking to partner with startups? What types of things do you see people doing right in this particular space, in kitchen and food? And what have you all learned about what it takes to make a successful product, not just something that people like or gets a lot of press, but something that actually has legs and is useful?
Yeah, we're a design, build, sell model. We are a direct-to-consumer selling model. We are an independent company, so we judge ourselves by how successful our products are that people purchase. I think truly engaging the consumer throughout the development process allows us to go much faster and allows us to really have insights in what we do. We are small, so we depend on some non-traditional approaches like crowdfundings or pre-sales and things like that to be able to gauge engagement, and I think that's useful for us. But ultimately, it's about creating a real tangible item that people can then interact with and give you that feedback and you can learn from. Those experiences of the actual product and those interactions with our consumer allow us to be able to add value to our parent. I mean, GE Appliances is a tremendous company and has outstanding R&D capability for themselves. Our purpose is to be outside in and do the things that are a little crazy, and I think we add value that way.
Do you think that you benefit from, when you go to market and you're selling to consumers, do you benefit from the GE name, the brand? Do you think people trust it more, or do you think it doesn't matter because it's, because of that separation? And
I actually think it helps quite a bit. Suppliers usually call you back when they don't think there's just 19 of you hanging out. And yeah, there's 19 of us, but there's a lot of other folks that actually own us. So, I mean, that helps tremendously. But I also think that we're very open about who we are. And we're very transparent about why we're doing what we do. And I think it actually shows a tremendous amount of thought leadership by our leadership at GE Appliances. FirstBuild is the mind's eye of our now CEO, Kevin Nolan, who created this to ensure that we were being innovative and being fast to market while he was the CTO. So having the independence, but yet having that strong connection back, I think enable us and allow us to try some things that are a little nutty, but quite frankly, people can trust that it's being backed by a leadership company.
Are employees within GE who are maybe on R&D or engineers or whatnot, are they encouraged if they have an idea to sort of work with you all, or can they come to you? You mentioned someone said, I was frustrated because I really couldn't work this into our current plan, but I really feel like this could be a great idea, and he came to you with that. Do you think that is that something that generally GE wants folks to do, and do you feel like that's part of the model that helps?
I think it's part of the model, but it's a challenge for everyone. Anybody that works in a large company knows that you always fight not invented here. We heard other speakers talk about that this morning. So we provide that outlet. But at the same time, it allows, I think, also people to engage directly with consumers, and there's tremendous value with that. I mean, some technologists work very long cycles and never have an opportunity to actually see their product go to market or actually hear from the consumers that that actually value it, and that's very empowering. It's very empowering for a technologist. It's very empowering for a creator. So we want to share that with our parent, and we're only 8 miles away. I mean, it's even with traffic, Louisville's not a big place, so it's all right.
When you were all first starting up, what were some of the, I know it was your CEO's original idea, so in that startup phase, was it originally sort of we're going to stick this, it's going to be outside the GE walls, we really want to encourage innovation, or was there thought, maybe we should have it be more tied in? Because I think we see a lot of different models, right? We see where there's a larger company who really wants to get their hands in and tentacles into all of those startups and want to work directly with them. And then we see sort of we want innovation to happen over here, and we want you guys to bring it back and tell us what you're doing so that we can, figure out how that makes sense for our org. So just curious how that's, when you guys were in startup phase, what that looked like.
I think we always wanted to value the maker movement and actually to work directly with makers and creatives. So I think it necessitated to be outside. We looked at places to be able to go, right? I mean, we looked at Silicon Valley, a lot of smart people there. We looked at the shipyards in Brooklyn. But ultimately, Louisville was a wonderful community that welcomed us. We were close to our parent. And just from a humble standpoint, we're a bigger deal in Louisville than we would ever be in San Francisco or New York. I mean, I think just to be honest and open with yourself. And by being that and being genuine to what we talk and inviting people and creating, it's been successful for us.
Awesome. Well, speaking of other models and other companies, I want to bring another voice to the stage. So I'm going to welcome Victoria Spadaro Grant from Barilla and Blue 1877 to the stage.
Oh, very strong.
Oh, you can have that one.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
I would love to just start off by kind of getting you guys have been here in the past. You've talked about the work that Barilla is doing. You are the Chief Technology Officer of Barilla, but you're also leading the Blue efforts. So tell us a little bit about kind of what that relationship looks like, what your vision is for Barilla's work with startups, and yeah.
Thank you, Ashley. When we created Blue, we conceived Blue about 3 years ago. The intention was to formalize attempts that we had at the company to reach out for innovation that would not be in the mainstream. So with that purpose, we founded Blue as a little sister of Barilla. So it's a company. It's the venture capital arm for Barilla. And our vision at Blue is to develop food ecosystems that are sustainable for people and for the planet, which is very much aligned with Barilla's mission, which is good for you, good for the planet. And this is not something that we have been talking for the last 5 years, but for 100 years. When Barilla was founded in 1877, back to its beginnings, that was the main purpose that Pietro Barilla had in mind. So the work that we do with that objective in mind, with the vision in mind, the work that we do is we reach out to communities of innovators and food startups that want to create new ecosystems and new models for joyful and sustainable food. So that is our main objective. So we look into products and services, and we look at that not necessarily with a financial lens, which is important, but our main objective is to do things that we wouldn't do within the Barilla system. A little bit similar to what Larry was mentioning before, it is very difficult to have in the big machinery things that are small when you don't have scale. But if you don't nurture and cultivate those smaller seeds, then you would not have a future. So it's something that you have to be ambidextrous.
As your position is unique because you sit as the CTO of this very large food company, and then you sit also and you lead the efforts for Blue. How do you see what's Barilla's interaction with the startups that you bring on? How is that collaboration? What does that look like? Because I think we talked about this. One of the things that's really different is I think there is actually a lot more happening with the folks in Barilla and those startups, whereas versus Larry's setup, which is sort of they've got their FirstBuild team and they're over there reaching out to the makers. So curious about sort of what that looks like.
Well, it is not by coincidence that I am the CTO, and I also have the honor and the pleasure of leading the efforts at Blue. At Blue, we are a very small team of 3 people. We don't have bounds of people, but what we do rely on is on the bigger machinery of Barilla, the different groups that we have within our organization, which is very similar to any other larger company. And we leverage that because it's important to us not only to develop outside, but also to help challenge and grow our company from different perspectives that are offered by young entrepreneurs, challenge idiosyncrasies and challenge paradigms that we may have and across the industry is very usual.
When you're looking at startups to work with, what are some of the key things that you're trying to find in the space? What excites you guys? What interests you? What are you looking for in the future? What things are not there yet, but you would like more folks in the space to come to the table?
So there are 2 things, frankly. The idea, and as important as the idea, the founders or the founder. If we see a fantastic idea, but the team is not very strong, we have learned that is going to be a difficult and uphill climb. Right. Whereas at times you have a product that is promising, it may not be the most innovative, but there is a different twist to it, and the team is fantastic, then it's something that we would be interested. We generally look into things that are related to our core business, which is pasta, sauces, and it's probably unbeknown to most of the U.S. population, but Barilla has one of the largest bakery businesses in the world. And so we are, when it comes to bread or cookies or all the repertoire of breads and bakery, so we look for healthy snacking, we look for circular solutions, so we are very interested in upcycling, and we are very interested in new types of solutions in terms of meals.
For folks who might be sitting out there who work for larger companies who really like this model or some version of this model where they want to encourage more innovation and have more of this direct line outreach into the startup community, what were some of the challenges when you were starting, or did it take a lot? Certainly you sit on the leadership team. Were there skeptics? Were there folks who weren't quite sure? Because certainly within a large legacy organization, there's sort of a lot of, the way we've done things, and this is our, so, curious about what that looked like, and also just advice for folks who maybe are trying to make headway there.
Sure, that happens everywhere,
yeah.
And I don't think that we are an exception. I think that by doing things is when you prove that something works or it doesn't. Many times there are, good funded reasons why something didn't work and it's not going to work, and sometimes they're not. But instead of discussing, the best thing is always to try and see if it works. And we support the smaller efforts, and that's the thing I think that we do best.
For both you and Larry, when you look at working with startups and maybe looking at kind of the sort of go-to-market, what are some of the variables and things you consider in terms of, is this going to be a success? How do we take the learnings of our parent company or just our own sort of knowledge and historical what we've seen? And I think, Larry, yours was more sort of, and I think your answer will involve sort of listening and being sort of direct, but how do you make sure that you're helping those startups, those entrepreneurs get it right, or fail and get it right again, and not sort of have the last thing you want to do is have a row of startups that just haven't taken off, right, or haven't succeeded, or haven't found some niche in the community. So how do you make that happen?
Well, first of all, the identification that we said before, so areas of interest, the founders, and the way that we look into nurturing. So the contributions that we can do when we work with startups are typically the contributions that a bigger industry does. So how is to work with scale, and what is the key challenge that I think it's one of the most important to those of us that work in the food and beverage industry, which is reaching the bloody shelf. If you don't reach the shelf, you don't have a sale, and that's basically the end of it. So we may talk about online, yes, that's all good, but at the end of the day, the hard reality of the shelf it's probably the most difficult thing. And for startups, we see that one of the key areas where we see some weaknesses many times is in the area of sales, understanding how you sell, distribution systems, how do you work with a broker, the very ABC of doing business. It's not really making the product. It may not even be scaling it up, but it's how to reach the shelf. I'm not undermining the other aspects, but I think that aspect of sales is very important, and many times is not necessarily considered as relevant.
Yeah. I mean, I think from a FirstBuild standpoint, we do B2B, we work with other businesses to deliver things. We look at if there's an opportunity for learning. I mean, a great example for that, I think we've worked with another company, Zemon Technologies, to create we call it a Sabbath module for refrigeration. So people who are Orthodox Jews, practicing the Sabbath is certainly a challenge, particularly with modern appliances. So we were able to work with that company and actually develop a device that can connect to your refrigerator and control it in such a way that you can utilize your refrigerator throughout the Sabbath and not break it. So there was learning of the deliverable of the device. There was an underserved population, and then there was certainly an opportunity for that company to work in and have a partner as large as GE Appliances, who was also very interested in that product. And those are the kinds of ways that we look for successes. The learning comes first, and then we make real things. And I think that's another way that we can work with startups, is actually help them getting their ideas to actual products that can be valued.
Victoria, you said, the piece about the shelf to me is fascinating. It seems really simple, but also we have a convergence here, right? We've got food and then we've got tech. And we always say, food tech, but we're kind of talking about two different things. It's one of the reasons we split our startup competition this year at Smart Kitchen Summit, because we had a lot of folks who were applying, and we were like, are they great for the Startup Showcase? But they're so interesting. They're fascinating. They're the future of food, and they're innovators too, in the same way we think about innovation happening in tech. But the pipeline to bring a new food product to market is really different than bringing a tech. And when you said, online is great, but you've got to get on the shelf, for some reason, I was like, right, because people buy food in person 90 or more % of the time, right? So that's when you bring food companies on, how do you get them to understand, great, you have e-commerce, but we have to work really hard to get you into the grocery stores so that people can know who you are.
I think, and as, grounded as it sounds, but a business plan is what starts or helps create the realization of what needs to happen in order to grow the promise of the company. And the sales, immediately, it's visible that, okay, you have to have a system, you have to be able to scale up, you need to be able to have a quality that is repeatable, and you need to be able to reach distribution, and you have to get on the shelf. I think that those are the things that we have a lot of experience. We do that for a living. Big organizations typically are logistics companies, and we are no exception. So when it comes to sales, when it comes to logistics, when it comes to scaling and to understanding processes, making food, at the end of the day, relies on makers. And there is a very important element, which is food safety. We cannot forget about that. And so it's not just being in a garage and doing something, but doing something that people can eat safely. So aside of quality and other things. And those are the things that we believe that if we see a good idea, we can nurture, and from our end, we can nurture that way. And we can obviously learn, and we can get challenged in ways of that we haven't thought before on how to make something. And so those are the type of interactions that we seek. And those are the things that we think that make us richer every day by exercising.
I'm curious for both of you, and maybe Larry, you can answer this first. How does GE ensure or think about making sure that innovation, not necessarily just taking your product and selling it, but that innovation is trickling back to the larger organization? Is there a concerted effort? Is it sort of more of a open door? FirstBuild has an open door, and so folks can go over there and sort of share in, or is there kind of a more formal process, or what does that look like?
We don't really have a lot of processes at FirstBuild, I will tell you. There's two things that we always tie back to our parent company. Any product that we sell meets all the above and beyond safety requirements for GE appliances, which are significantly more than agency. And of course, we are compliant with all regulations. But we have some standard work. I mean, we have a monthly ops review where we sit down with the C-suite of the business. But it's not a PowerPoint-driven presentation. We walk around and look at products that we've built, and they're interacting back and forth with the team. And then the real valuation is can we sell product? Are people buying the product? What are they saying about the product? Because that is actually the value of having an external entity that innovates for you. And it allows us, we're right-sized to fail, to be blunt. I mean, we offer at least 12 products a year for purchase. And there's like 19 of us, so we don't take a lot of naps. I mean, we're literally doing stuff. But, I mean, the fact of the matter is that we fail more than we succeed. We just try to do it in an appropriate way. We never fail with anything that would be inappropriate from a safety or quality standpoint. But also, we have a different brand. It allows us to have some courage. I think that tie back and that very transparent customer value allows GE Appliances to understand what they'd like to promote. I mean, our biggest deliverable, I mean, we do sell things for money, obviously, and things like that, but we want a graduate. That's the big feather in our cap. We want things that we buy to be taken by our parent company and launch it. That's our desire.
Yeah. Same question to you. So with Barilla, there are direct Barilla staff kind of working with startups. How do you sort of internally make sure that those skills are being cultivated and people are learning from what they're doing with the startups and, bringing that knowledge to the next set of startups they work with? And, how do you kind of cultivate that learnings kind of internally?
We are learning. Yeah. So that would be the short answer. I don't think that we have the formula. So we have existed for 2 years. I think that what we have done has impacted the company quite a bit. We have done an acquisition because of the work that we are doing at Blue. We have driven an acquisition that Barilla did because of what we are doing at Blue. So that is a way that we feel we're impacting by showing what is really happening in the external world. What we have learned as well is that, and you said it at the not so long ago, Ashley, food is food, it's not tech. We have also seen that we need to significantly focus the efforts and channel the work and the approaches that we have with the startups. So for that reason, we have created, and we are launching as we speak, well, we are in the process, an initiative that's called Good Food Makers. And so Good Food Makers seeks to attract startups that work around circular economy, healthy snacking, and meal solutions in terms of product and a little bit to service, but not directly technology. And so by doing that, we know that we will be able to touch the organization, the larger organization, even more at the core with things that are ever so more relevant, because the challenges by which we are doing this call for startups have been created by the business. So we are putting them out as a result of the interactions with the business.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So we are almost out of time, but I would love closing thoughts, something we didn't talk about or mention in the space. Again, we've got a mix of folks here. We've got probably folks who are sitting there thinking, I really want my organization to have, that sort of innovation happening in-house. And then there's startups out there who want to work with big companies. So, what should we tell them? Particularly, I think the startups. How do they get into that? Maybe applying for accelerator or VC funding is one way, but what should they be thinking about as they're approaching larger companies for collaboration?
So, number one, I think that organizations want to hear from you. Barilla, I know, Blue, we want to hear from you. And what is best to come equipped with, what is the idea and why do you think the idea would be successful? So it's as simple as that. And then from there, we can build a road or a roadmap together in terms of how to take it eventually to the market. So we do seed-level investments mostly, but I think that the contributions that we do from an organizational perspective are far greater than what you typically see from most FMCG companies.
Yeah, so it's beyond the money. It's really helping that capacity.
I think from a FirstBuild standpoint, we're very open to collaborate with others. We've done worked with other partners. I think it's maybe even a bit of difference. We're small. I mean, our minimum lot size of a product is 1. We will build something to see value there. So I think maybe it's a different opportunity for others that are maybe looking to prove things out or understand the adaptability or the acceptance of something, and the ability to have a maker mindset and rapidly innovate a product as you co-create it with someone. So maybe a bit different, but just as open.
Yeah. You guys have sort of that approach of, we open arms, we'll help you try, right? We'll help you try, and we'll help you try to get to that next level. And I think that's great. Thank you both so much for the conversation.
Thank you so much.
Let's give them a round of applause. So we are actually headed into a break right now, and I know Mike mentioned this, but these lovely